What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. I completed my 200th paid draft the other day, so I figured we'd take a look at my exposures, see which players I have not been taking. First up, Zay Flowers. I've taken him in 2 out of 200 drafts, making him the single player that I have not drafted the most in the first half of drafts. Not because I think he's like a bad player or anything. I think he's great. I think he's a great fit for this Ravens team. I think the Ravens are going to be great this season, but what are we really expecting from this season compared to prior years? He missed one game over the last 2 seasons, commanding 108, 116 targets over that time, finishing 32nd and 36th in points per game. So by taking him at his industry-wide ADP of the wide receiver 28, you will need improvement from the value he has provided over his first 2 seasons. And my issue is, I don't really see how his numbers get a whole lot better. Lamar probably should have won MVP last year. He threw 41 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions on an 8.6% touchdown rate. Everyone is falling over themselves to tell you you can't draft Goff, you can't draft Baker, you got to fade some of their playmakers because they're likely to see regression because they had a 6.9% and a 7.2% touchdown rate last season. Lamar was at 8.6%, and it's not like Lamar's always way higher than them. In the 3 prior years heading into last season, Lamar averaged a 4.9% touchdown rate, Goff was at 4.6, Baker was at 4.2, because that's the general range that quarterbacks are in. So it's not like Lamar's always hovering around 8%, 9% every year. In fact, the only season he was as lucky as he was last season, he lost 10 passing touchdowns the following season on the exact same number of games. Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback in a great system on a great team, but he's probably facing the most passing touchdown regression among all quarterbacks in a year where Zay needs to improve just for him to meet expectations at his ADP. Then people argue, okay, but it's nice to have the consistency. Consistency most of the time in fantasy is another way of saying no ceiling. Zay has no ceiling. He scored less than 9 half PPR points 10 times last season. He was between 9 and 19, 6 times, 1 game over 19 half PPR points. And again, that was in an MVP-worthy season for Lamar Jackson, where Lamar threw for a touchdown at a much higher rate than he will this season. And he had by far his best season in terms of passing yards and passing touchdowns. Plus, they added DeAndre Hopkins in the offseason to take more target share away and to lower Zay's already non-existent role in the red zone. So yeah, I just don't really see it with Zay. I see no reason to draft him. There is almost a 0% chance that he burns you for fading him. There are some players where if you don't draft him, it's like, yeah, they could be a league winner. They could be someone who finishes top 5 of their position. And you're like, wow, like I didn't make playoffs simply because I didn't draft them. That's just not going to happen with Zay. Isiah Pacheco up next, taking him in 3 out of 200 drafts. I do think Pacheco is going to be the lead running back on the Chiefs. I think if you look at the end of the season, he'll probably have the most touches on this team. I just don't think he's going to be that valuable in fantasy. Like, my issue is that, like, no one, no matter who you say, like, no matter who you think will get the most touches on this team, none of them are going to have that many touches. It is going to be a committee. They're going to throw the ball at one of the higher rates in the league, especially when they get into the red zone. And you're just really limiting upside when you draft a committee running back on a pass-heavy team, especially when that committee kind of sections things off. It's not like one drive for you, one drive for you. It's like you're the passing down back, you're the goal line back, you're between the 20s. That really, really limits the value because we want players who contribute in all areas, and that's just not going to be the case for Pacheco this season. Over the course of the entire year last year, Kansas City running backs had a grand total of 22 rush attempts inside the 10-yard line compared to 49 pass attempts to the team. When they get in close, Patrick Mahomes is going to throw the football. And the running back they lean on when they get close, like, they're still going to get touchdowns. It's just not going to be at a super high rate. It's not going to be someone who has double-digit touchdowns. If you look at the leading rushing touchdown score for the Kansas City Chiefs since Patrick Mahomes became the quarterback, the best is 7. So the single best season ever was 7 rushing touchdowns from a running back in a season that Patrick Mahomes was starting quarterback. So that's basically best case scenario, saying, okay, maybe And again, this is not a guarantee. Maybe Pacheco wins the goal line job. Last season, that was Kareem Hunt, and Kareem Hunt is still on the roster. So maybe Pacheco overtakes Hunt. He's the short yardage back. He's the goal line back. And you're still looking at hopefully 7 rushing touchdowns. That's not much of a ceiling when we're not even sure it's going to occur. And why would it occur? I mean, Kareem Hunt was actually pretty good as a goal line back last season, pretty good in short yardage. They probably want to keep going with Kareem Hunt and short yardage. So I just think the most likely outcome is that you've got, Pacheco getting basically only the between the 20s work. Like Hunt takes short yardage. I think Elijah Mitchell and Brashard Smith are probably going to split passing downs. And it's not like Pacheco is never going to be in there when they throw the ball, never going to be in there at the goal line. But when they can, they're going to kind of be removing guys around and taking Pacheco off the field in these really high leverage situations for fantasy. And that's just not great. Again, best case scenario here is you get 7 or 8 rushing touchdowns. The more likely scenario is you're closer to 4 or 5 with not that many receptions and definitely not a ton of carries. I just don't see it. 48 career games for Isiah Pacheco, 4 of them he went over 100 rushing yards. 1 of them he had at least 37 receiving yards. 1 multi-touchdown game. Again, he is not going to burn you for fading him. Draft players who could actually burn you for fading them. Next up, Jayden Reed. I've drafted him in 4 out of 200 drafts. Last season, they had Kraft in a more reduced role than we expect for him this season when they didn't have 3rd-round rookie Savion Williams, 1st-round rookie Matthew Golden, who looks like a hit in round 1. He looks like a really talented wide receiver. When he wasn't entering the season with a foot injury for Jayden Reed in a year like that, when honestly, you should expect better production last year than this year, he had 3 games over 80 receiving yards, 4 games between 50 and 80, 10 games below 50 receiving yards. If you rostered Jayden Reed last season, you know what I'm talking about here. When the heck do you actually start Jayden Reed? You're never going to know when the 3 or 4 games are coming where he finally gets over 80 receiving yards. You're going to see that happen on your bench. You're going to be like, man, wish I'd played him. Put him in next week and he's going to get you 1 point. That is just how it works for Jayden Reed because you're never going to be able to predict it because there's never any sort of target ceiling. Again, no Golden last year. No Savion Williams. Kraft in a more reduced role. And he is currently injured. He's currently entering the season with a foot injury. Throw all that away last season, 1 game with 7 or more targets last season. I just don't see how we're getting production that we're ever going to rely on for Jayden Reed if the target competition's increasing, if he's currently injured. And this isn't even, Christian Watson. This isn't even considering that. You're saying, okay, maybe there's a very, very small chance that a few times this season they put him in 2 wide receiver sets. Well, Christian Watson's coming back mid to late in the season. You don't think when they have Matthew Golden and Christian Watson that they're going to that in 2 wide receiver sets? Of course they are. Jayden Reed is not going to sniff the field in 2 wide receiver sets. So when they get up, he's not going to be on the field because they're going to go 2 wide receiver sets. They're going to play in 12 personnel. They're going to be running the ball a ton with 2 tight ends. He's just not going to be on the field. And so you basically need the games where they scored a ton of points. Hopefully it's through Jayden Reed because he's never going to see target volume. He has to be scoring touchdowns. And he's not even someone they're really going to heavily focus on in the red zone. I just don't see it. And then you look at, okay, who's he going right after? Because it's nice to obviously look at the wide receivers going behind him, but you should also consider who you just missed out on. If you draft Jayden Reed, the wide receivers you just missed out on, Ricky Pearsall, Chris Godwin, Juwan Jennings, Matthew Golden, Shakir, and Igbuka. It is a losing strategy to draft Jayden Reed directly after that group because half of your league mates just got way better value than you. Why would you lock that in? Why would you lock in way worse value than half of the teams in your league, or if you're a 10-team league, the majority of the other teams in your league? Again, another player. I just don't see a path to him burning you for fading him. Next up, 4th player, Brian Robinson Jr. I've taken him in 5 out of 200 drafts. Seems like the Commanders have finally caught on because they're shopping Brian Robinson Jr. Recently. In recent weeks, they've reached out to teams seeing if they can trade him away, just trying to get something for him right now in the trade market, basically citing a need for explosiveness. They didn't necessarily say you're not explosive, but they're like, well, we need more explosiveness at running back, so we'd like to not have Brian Robinson Jr. It's a very nice way of saying the dude can't run away from anyone. Now, like I said in the Saturday video, my gut says they're not going to actually get a trade done because, at worst, even if you think we want more explosiveness, number one, they're not trading for that running back. That is Corey Krosky-Merritt. Like, that is who they're talking about when they want explosiveness. But it's like, do you want to enter the season with Corey Krosky-Merritt and Eckler as your top two with no one really of that much talent behind them? So, like, at worst, my guess is they kind of split with Brian Robinson Jr. and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and then like Ja'Cory kind of like takes over, and then like maybe after that they try and trade him. But like, what do you really think to get in the trade market? Like, no one actually wants Brian Robinson Jr. in the trade market, so maybe you can flip him for like, I don't know, a pick swap in like 5, 6, 6, 7, something like that. But I don't think the value will be high enough in the trade market for them to actually want to trade him away, because again, they know he's at least an okay running back. He's capable of being the lead back on this team. Maybe he's not exactly who they want, but he's capable. And I just think they'd rather have that as a backup. So I still don't think they're going to trade him. But the fact that they want to trade him away, they want someone else, they clearly see a need for a different running back, that is extremely concerning. And it's not something we want to see when we're drafting a running back in round 7. Like, that's just, it's too early to be worried about that. Like, at this point, like, even if Brian Robinson Jr. remains on the Commanders, which is the best outcome, like, no one is trading for him to be their featured running back. So, like, that's probably the best outcome. Perhaps Dallas, like, I guess if Dallas wanted to go after him, maybe that would make a little sense, but it would be a little weird for them to do unless they start cutting like Javonte, cutting Miles Sanders. But you would want, if you drafted Brian Robinson Jr., you'd want him on the Commanders. It's a great offense. If he actually got the touches, that's where the most value will be, not getting traded to a team a week before the season starts, not knowing the playbook, not knowing his role, and having no ability to start him for the first month or two of the year. Like, you do not want that to occur. So even if he remains there, we know for a fact Eckler is going to be more involved in passing downs. We have pretty much confirmed at this point that they want Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt to have a weekly role as well. So you're looking at a 3 running back by committee at best, with a chance that Brian Robinson Jr. straight up loses the starting job and is someone you have to cut in fantasy. Again, that is just not something I want to have even a slim possibility of in the 7th round of my draft. So unless he falls like 4 or 5 rounds past ADP, I just don't see how you can draft him right now. Next up, Travis Etienne. I've taken him in 2 out of 200 drafts thus far. He's probably the name on this list, though, that has the most upside and the clearest path to production. There is definitely a chance that I am just overrating Bashal Tutin, that Etienne ends up as the lead running back on the Jacksonville Jaguars, that he finishes as a high-end running back 2 in fantasy points per game, that ends up as a fantastic pick, really elevates the teams that drafted him. I think that is possible. And for the first 4 that we mentioned, I don't think it's in the range of outcomes. So if there was a player in this video that you're like, Nick, I disagree with you on, I want to draft this player, make it Travis Etienne. If you have a strong take on Etienne, that is one I'm willing to draft more. Again, if your take is different. So I recognize it's definitely a bold stance, really not drafting him at all, 1% of my teams. Sometimes, though, you got to make a bold stand on a player when you have a strong take on a different player on their team. And I just have a really strong opinion that Bashal Tutin is going to be a great running back in the NFL. He's incredibly explosive. That's something that we know teams are valuing more and more every season. And he's great at making defenders miss. An amazing combination we want from our running backs. Travis Etienne was the 2nd worst running back at forcing missed tackles last season, ranking slightly behind Nick Chubb, slightly ahead of Kareem Hunt. Not exactly the 2 you want to be sandwiched in between when it comes to forcing missed tackles. Neither of them looked all that good at forcing missed tackles last season. And it isn't even a solo bet on Tutin. Like, maybe you're not a Tutin fan, but he doesn't have to just beat out Bashal Tutin. He still has to beat out Tank Bigsby as well. And Tank Bigsby has proven to be a more effective pure runner, not in the receiving game. Tank Bigsby is never going to be a passing down running back. So that is like kind of the one out. If you think that Tutin is bad, that Tank can't catch, and that Etienne's going to be change of pace plus receptions, and that the Jaguars are going to be a great offense, and that's how he hits, go for it. Draft him. It's just not my opinion. I think that Tank Bigsby is a much better pure early down running back. I think that Bashal Tutin by the end of the season could be featured on this team because he's a better early down, or can be, again, we don't know yet, but can be a better early down running back than Tank Bigsby, can be a better passing down back than Travis Etienne. And when you morph that into one player, you're not selling out your hand. When you put Tank onto the field, you know you're not throwing him the football. When you put Etienne onto the field, you know you're probably not going with a heavy early down approach. When Tootin is out there, I have no idea what you're going to call on offense. And so he just becomes a more valuable player. And if he's just better at making people miss, that helps you on both the ground and through the air. So again, I would prefer Bashal Tootin. And in my opinion, when it comes to these ambiguous backfields, when it comes to these backfields where we just don't know, I don't know who's going to be the top back on this team. If you don't know, your best bet is draft the one that's cheapest by ADP or draft the one that the new coaching staff is invested in themselves. The one that a staff came in, identified a player they like, and drafted them, not a player that was on the team that they happened to get a head coaching job for. The answer to both of those, who's the cheapest and who did the new staff invest in, is Bashal Tootin. And so I want to take a stand drafting him and not drafting Travis Etienne. So I might be through 200 drafts, but I know a lot of you have yet to do yours. I apply everything that I learn from these drafts directly into the rankings. So if you want to draft with those rankings, you see my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. And if you have an in-person draft, please download the app. Please print off the rankings cheat sheet and then just see which one works best for you and use that. I think both are amazing additions to the site this season. I want to make sure everyone knows that they're there. All right, please leave a like if you are still here. Please subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'll be back Friday to go over another top 5 video, and then Saturday to talk about all the news from the last week and how it impacts drafts. That'll do it for this one though, and thank you all for watching.